Hello there, very good evening and welcome to weekend edition of Primetime News on TV1. On behalf of the Newsfirst, the voice of the people, Martin Satyanesan. Let's start off with a look at your headlines for this evening. Schools, universities and tuition classes will remain closed until further notice. Celebrate Vesak and Ramazan indoors. Director General of Health advises the public. GMOA says issues in allocating ICU beds for COVID-19 patients. President says it is the labour force who is mostly impacted from the COVID-19 pandemic. World's first Satyagraha demanding a separate habitat for elephants called off temporarily by Sri Lankan farmers. Director General of Health Services Dr. Ashwini Gunawardana said schools, universities and tuition classes will be closed until further notice. He expressed his views at a press conference held in Colombo this afternoon. Dr. Ashwini Gunawardana also said that the upcoming Ramazan festival as well as the Vesak festival should be celebrated at home.
Preschools, government and private schools, all higher education institutes and tuition classes will be closed down until further notice. We will not permit any meeting to take place. We also cannot allow for people to gather and pray at places of religious worship, including temples, kovils and churches. We have not imposed any sanctions against going and praying alone, but you cannot engage in other public prayers. I humbly request the public to celebrate Ramazan and Vesak in a similar fashion. You can celebrate the festival at your home, but we cannot allow large ceremonies, display of pandals or Vesak lantern competitions.
What is the COVID-19 situation in Sri Lanka at present? The number of COVID-19 cases reported in Sri Lanka had risen by 678 cases in the 24 hours that ended at 6 this morning. 11 COVID-19 deaths were reported yesterday. The COVID-19 fatalities were reported from Piliyandala, Dehiyattakandiya, Matale, Kalutara, Vattala, Diulapitiya, Papiliyavala, Anuradhapura, Colombo 14, Paragastota and Kalaniya. 4 of the deceased are women. A total of 1,662 COVID-19 cases were reported in the island yesterday. 329 cases were reported from the Kurunegala district, which was the highest tally among all districts in the country. The situation at hospitals. The total number of COVID-19 cases being reported are increasing fast, and this is more than our total hospital capacity. There are some complications in admitting all of these patients into the hospitals. The number of patients are exceeding the number of available beds. There is an issue in securing ICU beds for COVID-19 patients. According to the data obtained from the last few days, patients have only been admitted to hospitals and none of the patients have been discharged. It is only after tomorrow that we will discharge patients because we keep them in treatment for at least 10 days in the hospital. It is only then that we see the capacity at hospitals come back to normal levels. Treatment beds at intermediary treatment centers are full at the moment. We have taken steps to provide more beds if more patients are reported in the future. Delays in hospitalizing COVID-19 patients. There is a massive delay in admitting COVID-19 patients to hospitals. We have received information of long delays in admitting patients after they have tested positive for COVID-19. These delays are a very serious issue. It will take us at least 1 or 1.5 days to admit the patients. That is a complicated procedure. The more number of patients, the more time has to be spent. There is no decision taken as of yet to treat asymptomatic patients at their homes. The committee, which will take a decision on that, will convene in the coming few weeks. We will make the relevant decisions after that. Will the country be placed under a lockdown? No. The government headed by the president does not have any intention of placing the entire country under lockdown. They are of the opinion that there is no need for such a move right now. Was the UK variant of the COVID-19 virus present in Sri Lanka before the 8th of April. We were very cautious of this UK variant being detected in Sri Lanka. We were able to identify this variant in a number of patients identified from various locations. It is hard for us to believe that these cases were detected on the 8th of April. Although we had some knowledge on the spread of this variant before that, we had not received evidence regarding it. When we took a look at the spread of the virus now, we can see some other different variants of the virus among the cases that are being identified as of now.
If these scientific facts that they present are true, and if the UK variant is spreading in the country, an investigation must be conducted into the weaknesses of the procedures. Steps must be taken to ensure that such mistakes do not take place again. It is pointless to just speak about the preventive measures on television. These measures must be implemented on the ground, and people must be held responsible to it.
Why was the number of PCR tests reduced while the UK variant was spreading in the country? As we are in the midst of a pandemic, we decide on the number of PCR tests that need to be conducted and when they need to be conducted based on the information and statistics that we receive. During last November and December, we saw a decrease in the number of cases reported in the island and a drop in the spread of the virus. Is the information on the spread of the virus accurate?
There is much discussion in the health sector about issues in the transfer of information in the epidemiology unit. If it is only the epidemiology unit that is involved in this, they must bear full responsibility of it. They must take over the responsibility and do this properly. We call this a multidisciplinary reaction. All other sectors work hand in hand with us, but the health sector must be in the forefront. If the health sector is to take the leadership, the health sector must first be proper.
Sri Lanka's Director General of Health Services today issued a series of guidelines to control the spread of COVID-19 with effect from the 1st of May this year. The instructions are as follows. Conferences, seminars, meetings and brand luncheons are not allowed until the 21st of May. The decision will be reviewed based on the COVID-19 situation in the country. Supermarkets, shopping malls, financial institutions, textile stores, retail outlets can only operate with 25% of customer capacity present at any given time. Events and public gatherings held at closed and open venues will be prohibited until further notice. The gathering of people at religious places should be suspended. Cinemas and theatres, kids' playgrounds, swimming pools, pubs and bars, casinos and nightclubs, betting centres and spas will remain closed until further notice. Accommodation in hotels, inns and guest houses, etc. can only operate with 50% of the total capacity and should not be in operation after 10 p.m. Carnivals, musical shows, beach parties and festivals are not allowed. Open stalls, fairs and bakeries should operate with 25% of the customer capacity present at any given time. Up to 25% of the total capacity of courts is open to the public. No visitation for prison inmates. Schools, preschools, universities and higher educational institutions and tuition classes will be closed until notified. No permission has been granted for weddings from the 4th of May until the 20th of May this year.
Will the Russian vaccine be brought to Sri Lanka?
The State Pharmaceuticals Corporation of Sri Lanka said the first consignment of Russia's Sputnik V COVID-19 vaccine is scheduled to arrive in the island on Tuesday morning. The consignment will include 15,000 doses of Russia's Sputnik V COVID-19 vaccine that must be administered in 2 doses. Russia has agreed to ship another batch of 200,000 COVID-19 vaccines to Sri Lanka.
How will Sri Lanka respond to the insufficient supply of the AstraZeneca COVID-19 vaccine?
There are other countries that manufacture the same AstraZeneca vaccine. Therefore, senior advisor to the President, Lalit Veeratunga, has already held discussions in this regard. So there is a high possibility of us receiving the vaccine. Even in the event we do not receive the vaccines, we have other solutions to resolve the matter.
What is the status of the agreement for the Pfizer-BioNTech COVID-19 vaccine?
The State Pharmaceuticals Corporation of Sri Lanka said it is taking steps to enter into an agreement to purchase the Pfizer-BioNTech COVID-19 vaccines. The State Pharmaceuticals Corporation of Sri Lanka further said that the relevant firm has signed the agreement and sent it to Sri Lanka. Pfizer-BioNTech said the guidelines of administering the COVID-19 vaccine will be provided to the State Pharmaceuticals Corporation of Sri Lanka once both parties have signed the agreement. However, the Pfizer-BioNTech COVID-19 vaccine is yet to be approved by the State Pharmaceuticals Corporation of Sri Lanka. State Pharmaceuticals Corporation of Sri Lanka, speaking to Newsfirst, said an application form in this regard has not been received as of yet. A storage capacity of 70 degrees will be needed to store the Pfizer-BioNTech COVID-19 vaccine.
Has the World Health Organization approved the Moderna COVID-19 vaccine?
The World Health Organization has listed Moderna's COVID-19 vaccine for emergency use for those aged 18 and above. However, the State Pharmaceuticals Corporation of Sri Lanka has only approved the use of the AstraZeneca COVID-19 vaccine and Russia's Sputnik V COVID-19 vaccine.
Singapore has decided to stop entry or transit for visitors with recent travel history to Bangladesh, Nepal, Pakistan and Sri Lanka.
The ban will be imposed with effect from tomorrow and will cover all long-term pass holders and short-term visitors who have been in the country in the last 14 days, including transit. Co-chairperson of the COVID-19 Multi-Ministry Task Force of Singapore, Lawrence Wong, said the ban will also apply to those who have obtained prior entry approval from Singapore authorities.
We've been monitoring the infection situation around the world and particularly in India since we last announced some border measures. The situation, unfortunately, has continued to deteriorate, and we know that the infection is spreading beyond India to the surrounding countries. So we will be taking several steps to tighten our border measures. From 1st of May 2359, all long-term pass holders and short-term visitors with recent travel history to Bangladesh, Nepal, Pakistan, and Sri Lanka will not be allowed entry into Singapore or transit through Singapore. So we will be restricting travelers from these countries. Travelers with recent travel history in these countries who are already in Singapore and are presently serving out their stay-home notice will be required to serve out a full 21-day stay-home notice as well.
Italy has banned travel from Sri Lanka amid the COVID-19 emergency in neighbouring India, as well as tightening quarantine regulations for residents who have recently returned from the country. The Italian government had already banned travel from India and Bangladesh due to fears of a surge of COVID-19 cases in the region.
Although the working class is celebrated today on International Labour Day, labourers across the country were seen working even today. Labourers in Colombo Fort continued their daily struggle today, as usual, in a bid to make ends meet amidst renewed challenges posed by the COVID-19 pandemic.
Opposition leader Sajith Premadasa, issuing a special message in line with the International Labour Day, said the country has fallen into a situation where national resources are being sold owing to poor economic management. He added that attempts have been made to suppress the voice of the opposition. It states that state repression has been directed against the opposition and that the government has launched an operation to push the country and the people into darkness by pushing the ambitious agenda aside from building the country. Meanwhile, the May Day celebrations of the Samagijana Balavegya was held under the auspices of opposition leader Sajith Premadasa.
අපි අවබෝධ කරගන්නට ඕන ආර්ථික වර්ධන වේගය ගැන කතා කරනවා සේම ආර්ථික වර්ධනය ඉහළ යනකොට කම්කරු වගේ.
What we should clearly understand is that when we speak about the economic growth, it is also important to understand with the growth of the economy of our labour should also develop. The Samagijana Balavegya is not a party of the wealthy class, it is a party of the people. We understand the value of our labourers and it is much greater than the value of the wealthy class. We need to understand that this country does not only develop with money, it also develops with their strength and sweat of our labourers. Millions of people have lost their jobs, wages have been slashed, allowances and overtime wages have been slashed. Today, the government has imposed sanctions and violated the rights of the labourers. They have put aside the labourer and are supporting the lumpen capitalist culture in support of the wealthy class.
මේ රටේ ඉහළම පෝසතා රැක ගැනීමේ ලුම්පන් ධනවාදයක් අද ක්‍රියාත්මක කරමින්.
Issuing a message in line with the International Labour Day, President Gotabaya Rajapaksa said the labour force is one of the most adversely affected groups in the world due to the COVID-19 pandemic.
President Gotabaya Rajapaksa said the government has clearly understood the reality faced by the working masses in the country, adding that it is working with commitment to ensure better living standards for its citizens without imposing limitations that obstruct the economic activities of the working people, without imposing limitations that obstruct the economic activities of the working place. The head of state added that the right of the working people was safeguarded by ensuring that all public sector employees were given their full salaries without any deductions and continuing to maintain all public welfare programs amidst the COVID-19 pandemic. Prime Minister Mahinda Rajapaksa extended his wishes for the International Labour Day.
සමස්ත වැඩ කරන ජනතාවට මා සුබපතුම් එක් කරන්නේ ඉමහත් සතුටින්.
I extend my best wishes to all the working people with much joy. I take this opportunity to appreciate everyone who work and shed their sweat at the workplace. Just like last year, the COVID-19 pandemic has forced us to celebrate International Labour Day without any rallies or meetings. Despite the adversities we face, I must remind you that our government has given the working people of the country their due recognition. Also, we will dedicate ourselves to protect the rights of labourers. The budget proposal presented by me for the year 2021 proposed a 1,000 rupee daily wage for estate workers, and being able to implement this is one of our achievements. On this Labour Day, which is celebrated under the theme A People-Friendly Workplace, A Safe Country, I strongly believe that the working people of our country will come together to uplift the local economy.
දේශීය ආර්ථිකයේ නගා සිටුවීමට කම්කරු ජනතාව එකමින් අත්වැල් බැඳගනු ඇතයි මාගේ විශ්වාසයයි.
The 28th memorial ceremony of late President Ranasinghe Premadasa was held at the Premadasa statue near the Olst Court complex this morning. The Mahasangha, including the Anunayaka of the Malwatu chapter of the Siam sect, Most Venerable Niyangoda Vijitasiritha Thero and other religious leaders were also present at the event. Opposition leader Sajith Premadasa, wife of late President Ranasinghe Premadasa, Hema Premadasa, family members and other dignitaries were present at the occasion. The late president can be regarded as a great leader who worked for the people, the country and the Buddha Sasana. The late President Ranasinghe Premadasa worked for the people day and night. Time was not an issue to him. He had an understanding of how to conduct himself in such a manner in any given situation. In summary, we can come to the conclusion that if the late president had lived during the past 25 years, the outlook of this country would have been more prosperous. A moment of silence was observed in respect to the late president, along with multi-religious observances. Triforces and police guard of honour were accorded while the mayor of Colombo, Rosi Senanayake, garlanded the statue of the late president. Afterwards, the group, including the leader of the opposition, paid floral tribute to the statue. After the event, the leader of the opposition vowed to support a group of people who had attended the event.
A memorial ceremony to commemorate the late T.B. Ilangaratne, who pioneered to declare the Labourers' Day as a national holiday, was held opposite the T.B. Ilangaratne statue located on Sri Uttarananda Mawata in Colombo 3. T.B. Ilangaratne, who entered politics after being a trade union leader, can be named one of the founding members of the Sri Lanka Freedom Party. Chairman of the Sri Lanka Freedom Party and former President Maithripala Sirisena presided as a chief guest of the event.
Our government is trying to reduce the repercussions we are experiencing from the neoliberalism that prevailed for 17 years in this country. We have now paved the way to create a national economy and a public-centered development.
I
would like to wish and bestow our blessings on the labour community here in Sri Lanka as well as in other countries. We will always stand for their rights. In this day and age, a person like T.B. Langaratna is an exemplary figure. Politicians like him are hard to find in this present society.
T.B. Langaratna කියන්නේ පරමාදර්ශී චරිතයක්. ඒ පරමාදර්ශී දේශපාලන චරිත අද මේ රටේ සොයා ගැනීම ඉතාම අපහසුයි. කම්කරුවන් විදිහට අපි උන් සම්බන්ධ
The Sri Lanka Freedom Party has made a series of proposals named 21 for 21 for the betterment of labourers in the country. That series of proposals have been handed over to the President and the Prime Minister. In the future, we are hoping to have discussions regarding that and grant our labour force their rights. As of now, we are not thriving to achieve political advantages.
The conference, titled Let's Defeat Capitalism and Build People's Power for Socialism, organised by the Janata Vimukti Peramuna for the International Labour Day, was held online today.
There are two deep issues that our country has faced. First is that the Treasury does not have enough funds to meet the expenses of the government. A sum of $2 billion must be paid back. What were the solutions chosen by the government? They opted to take more loans to pay off these loans. During the past 1.5 months alone, the government has secured loans of $2 billion from China. Plans are drafted to sell off the West Container Terminal of the Colombo port to India, not as part of our strategic plan, but it is a scenario where we have to sacrifice the West Container Terminal in hope of getting a loan from India. They have brought a new bill for the port city. The operation of 7 acts in Sri Lanka have been restricted in this area. This commission that administers the port city can have foreigners, and it does not support our country's economy. We have to start this port city project in furtherance of China's strategic interests. The children of those who made these decisions or the friends of the ruling class will not be affected by this. The children of the ordinary people of this country will be affected by this. These rulers have 3 types of solutions to the economic issues. One is unscientific, rural populist solutions. Secondly, deceptive solutions. And thirdly, dangerous solutions. This crisis is evident that our country cannot continue like this. This country can be developed. We own 60,610 square kilometers of land. This land is rich in gems, minerals, phosphate, limestone and other mineral resources. Also, we own a sea area 8 times our land mass. Our country should be transformed through the use of the most advanced technologies and management techniques in the world. Meanwhile, a conference was organized in Nugegoda by the Frontline Socialist Party in line with the May Day celebrations. There is a huge crisis ahead of us. There are influences posed by superpowers. Joe Biden in the United States is trying to combine the Indian and Pacific Oceans in order to establish a military base. What is going to happen? While China is taking part in this as a superpower with the One Belt, One Road initiative, a power struggle can be seen with attempts to establish power in this region. Presidents and prime ministers are paying visits. Agreements are being signed. Ports are being given away from all fronts. When one terminal is being requested, another is given. Our country has turned into an economy of extortion. We believe being caught to these superpowers is more dangerous than the pandemic.
The Port City Economic Commission Bill is due to be debated in Parliament on the 5th of this month. Here are some of the views expressed today regarding this debate.
Parliament will receive the determination only on the 4th of May. The government, using their 2/3 majority at the party leaders' meeting, included it in the agenda for the bill to be debated only during the course of one day and for it to be passed in Parliament. They have convinced the Speaker to heed to their wishes as well. This is a very serious, undemocratic move. How can such a bill with serious implications and so many amendments be debated in Parliament during the course of just one day? There is no practical way that this can be debated and passed in one day. The legal draftsman doesn't even have enough time to prepare the draft bill. Why are they trying to pass this bill under such pressure during a pandemic with just one day of debate? What is the hurry? Are we already under Chinese rule? Just like Don Juan Dharmapala handed over Sri Lanka to foreigners through an agreement for his own safety and for him to secure his throne, is the current president trying to sacrifice our sovereignty to the might of Chinese grants and loans? One word can affect the sovereignty of our nation. One word can affect the citizens of our country. One clause can rob our country of our heritage for generations to come.
With
the port city being launched as soon as possible, it will be possible to create reserves of over $15 billion by the year 2028. There are various stories that are being published regarding this project. They are trying to deceive the people by saying that the Colombo port city is going to function like a separate state. This bill will be submitted in Parliament and passed into law as soon as possible. Foreigners and locals alike will be given an opportunity to invest in this project. The legal scheme presented for this project is one that will allow these investors to receive their share of the profit and also contribute to the development of the country according to the law of the country. When the country is being developed like this, it is only natural that various people make false accusations like this.
News First, the voice of the people.
Farmers of Valsapugala called off their Satyagraha temporarily on its 105th day today. The Satyagraha had been centered on 6 demands, including the need for a managed wild elephant reserve. Incidentally, this is world's first Satyagraha staged by farmers for more than 100 days, demanding a habitat for animals, including wild elephants.
Farmers of Valsapugala launched a Satyagraha on the 18th of January, citing 6 demands, including the need to gazette a managed wild elephant reserve and to construct a strong electric fence around the reserve to protect the animals. The Satyagraha was staged by 86 farmers groups, including the Walawa Left Bank Farmers Association. Our correspondent reported that the Satyagraha was called off on its 105th day today after representatives of farmers groups had been promised further action on the gazette declaring the managed wild elephant reserve.
If this reserve is similar to the construction of a house, I feel that we have only seen the roof being built. This is similar to laying a roof atop pillars without constructing walls. Several other matters need to be addressed to strengthen this structure. We have learnt that the most important activities are set to commence in 3 months. It is after 6 months that we will be able to witness the completion of the reserve. A group including Minister Namal Rajapaksa made a pledge to this effect yesterday. Do not halt this struggle. I wish to call on everyone to refrain from giving up until electric fences are constructed and the homes, properties and fields of farmers are protected. Minister Chamal Rajapaksa, we need to thank you for a certain matter. We staged this demonstration for 105 days because of you. We need to thank you for that. You viewed the people here as NGO members. You addressed them as a group of fools. I wish to thank you for allowing us to achieve victory after a 105-day struggle. The rulers must not forget this. We will not halt our struggle by simply calling off this demonstration.
Venerable Theras visited the Satyagraha site and conducted peace observances for the farmers. Saplings were planted at the site of the Satyagraha as farmers headed towards their homes after a 105-day long struggle.
Sri Lanka's outstanding government debt increased by a staggering 2 trillion rupees last year. According to the central bank's annual report for 2020, outstanding government debt had increased to 15 trillion by the end of 2020 from 13 trillion reported during the end of 2019. As a percentage of GDP, total outstanding government debt rose to 101% by the 2020 compared to 86.8% in 2019. The following is a report on Sri Lanka's fiscal position last year based on the central bank's annual report.
In 2020, government revenue declined to 1.4 trillion rupees, a drop of 28% compared to 1.9 trillion rupees in 2019. The decline was largely due to the reduction in taxes. According to the central bank, revenue from taxes had dropped to 1.2 trillion rupees, a 30% decline compared to 1.7 trillion rupees in 2019. Total revenue as a percentage of GDP also dropped to 9.1% last year compared to 12.6% in 2019. Total government expenditure also reduced to 3 trillion rupees in 2020 from 3.3 trillion in 2019, a drop of 9%. Recurrent expenditure accounted for 84% of total expenditure, while the remaining 16% were capital expenses. 32% of total government expenditure, which is 980 billion rupees, was spent on debt interest in 2020, an increase of 8.8% compared to 2019. Total interest payments last year were equivalent to 71.7% of total government revenue. Salaries and wages accounted for 26% of total government expenditure, that is approximately 794 billion rupees, an increase of 15.7% compared to 2019. The deficit between government revenue and expenditure increased to 1.6 trillion rupees in 2020 compared to 1.4 trillion in 2019. The budget deficit as a percentage of GDP increased to 11.1% in 2020 from 9.6% in 2019. The budget deficit last year was financed entirely via domestic funding amounting to 1.7 trillion rupees.
Prashasta Kavishad won a cash prize of 1 million rupees on the Lakshapati program aired on our sister channel Sirasa TV. Prashasta Kavishad is a 13-year-old student of Ananda College, Colombo. We wish him all the best for his future endeavours. Scottish historian and author William Dalrymple has travelled to Sri Lanka from India through the India-Sri Lanka air bubble.
Posting on social media, William Dalrymple said that he fled to Sri Lanka using the India-Sri Lanka travel bubble concept. William Dalrymple is an author and a Scottish historian who lives in Delhi, India. His books have won numerous awards and prizes, including the Duff Cooper Memorial Prize and the Thomas Cook Travel Book Award. He is also one of the co-founders and co-directors of the annual Jaipur Literature Festival. Following some backlash for his post on social media, it was taken down and an apology was posted on Twitter. The tweet read, quote, "I need to apologize for a post yesterday about leaving Delhi to avoid COVID. It was intended to reassure worried friends and family, but caused understandable anger for being tone deaf and reeking with privilege. I am very sorry for the upset that it has caused," unquote.
A fire in a COVID-19 hospital ward in Western India killed 18 patients as the country, grappling with the worst outbreak, stepped up a vaccination drive for all adults, even though some states say they do not have enough jabs.
The fire broke out around midnight in the intensive care ward of a designated COVID-19 facility in Bharuch city, 185 kilometers north of Gujarat's main commercial city, Ahmedabad. Police said 16 patients and 2 staff members have died in the fire. The cause of the fire is being investigated. Prime Minister Narendra Modi said in a tweet he was pained by the loss of lives due to the fire at a hospital in Bharuch. Meanwhile, India set yet another daily global record today with 401,993 new COVID-19 cases, taking its tally to more than 19.1 million. Another 3,523 people died in the past 24 hours, raising the overall fatalities to 211,853. However, experts believe both figures are an undercount. Prime Minister Narendra Modi held a cabinet meeting yesterday that discussed steps to save the country's crumbling health system by adding hospital beds, resolving issues in vaccine production, storage and transport of oxygen, and tackling the shortage of essential medicine. The Indian government today shifted its faltering vaccination campaign into high gear by saying those aged 18 and above will be vaccinated. However, states including central Madhya Pradesh and hard-hit Maharashtra have said they will not start vaccinating this age group today. Despite being the world's biggest producer of vaccine, the country is suffering an internal shortage and has placed a temporary hold on all exports of AstraZeneca to meet domestic demand. The US joined other nations to send assistance to India by delivering therapeutics, rapid virus tests and oxygen, along with some materials needed for India to boost the domestic production of COVID-19 vaccines. The Indian Air Force airlifted oxygen containers from Singapore, Dubai and Thailand.
That's a wrap of primetime news for tonight. We leave you tonight with some of the views expressed by the parliamentarian of National People's Power Movement, Dr. Harini Amarasuriya. For the Newsfirst, the voice of the people, I'm Martin Satyanesan, along with the sign language interpreter Taraka Gabriel and producer Charlene Benedict. Take care and good night.
The Epilogue.
දේශපාලන පරිගැනීම් පිළිබඳ ජනාධිපති කොමිසම මම දකින.
In my view, the appointment of the Presidential Commission probing political victimization and the report it published have disgraced our judiciary and law systems. We never imagined the President to be such a narrow-minded individual. The appointment of such a commission proves that he is incapable of solving problems directly and opts to deal with issues with a selected few behind closed doors. Instead of solving problems through accepted protocols, he uses intimidation as a tool to get things done. What has this commission done? It has ordered approximately 30 cases to be dismissed. How can this commission look into a personal matter linked to Udaya Gammampila, a case that was filed by an Australian citizen over theft? How can this matter be considered political victimization? Remember, the law and the judicial systems must continue for our future generations. Interference in the judicial system will affect the present and future generations. Therefore, the citizens of this country should stand against such interference.
ඉතින් මේ කරන බලපෑම නවත්වන්න අපි සියලු දෙනා මැදිහත් විය යුතුයි කියලා මම විශ්වාස කරනවා.
The Epilogue.